So here topic is here Russia-Ukraine crisis. Lots of articles that has been published in Indian Express, The Hindu, and as well as Economics Times. So basically, this will help you out in the mains GS paper second. We are international relation, that is IR, is concerned, and you will get to know the exact point why the crisis is happening and what exactly the issues behind it. So we have to understand it first, why these things happening. What was the roots of the conflict? So we have for knowing this fact, we have to go deep. Ukraine was a part of Soviet Union, USSR, until its 1991 collapse. So in 2004, Orange Revolution began after reports of widespread vote rigging in the presidential election, nominally won by the pro-Russian candidate. What is Viktor Yanukovych? So basically, pro-Russian, we will get to know what exactly the term it has been used. In 2014, revolutions of dignity began in Ukraine, which saw month-long protests which toppled pro-Moscow Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych. So Russia used the power vacuum and annexed Crimea in 2014. We will get to know in the map part where is the Crimea is located. Crimean Peninsula conflict broke out between the Ukrainian government and Russian-backed separatists who declared two regions of eastern Ukraine, Donetsk and Luhansk. That is the bone of contention in this part. The Donetsk and Luhansk, known as the Donbass. So basically, Donetsk and Luhansk region, that is known to be a Donbass, that is the main bone of contention between the two countries. So self-proclaimed republic. So that two countries are officially known as Donetsk and Luhansk, that is known as Donbass. So what exactly this is basically? So now we get to know with the help of map. So we will exactly understand. So what Russia want now? Basically, we have to understand first the nitty-gritty, what exactly the issues is going on. What Russia wants now, talk to discuss implementation to previous commitment on NATO expansion. As you can see, the Ukraine is not a member of NATO. Ukraine is not a member of NATO. If it happened, then it means that most of the country, that the 29 country who is a member of NATO, will help you out for that particular country. And USA is trying to establish the political and economical hegemony in the particular area. So NATO troops moving out of post-Soviet states, a commitment that Ukraine will not given NATO members. Security guarantee for the future. What does US and European states that form NATO wants? Russian troops to pull back from the borders, Russia to stop war games, neighboring countries like Belarus willing to discuss security guarantee, but no commitment on independent state joining NATO, according to letter leaked to a Spanish newspaper. It wants guaranteeing that Russia will not invade Ukraine. Russia has said it has no intention to, but troops amassed are worrying. So basically, this is the role of NATO and as well US. Here is Ukraine, as we can see in the map. Here is the Ukraine and is the capital Kyiv. And here is Romania, and this part is the Crimea, which has to be already annexed in 2014. This part is already annexed in 2014. So now that part is Luhansk and this one area. So that is the bordering area of Russia, and that where the matter of conflict is started. Okay, so here is a few years back, we can say in 1991, countries which are formed by disintegration of erstwhile USSR. So Ukraine was a part of USSR. Once the country was divided, see, we have to understand what was the reason of conflict. So before to knowing the concept, why they are fighting, we have to understand in the erstwhile, and we have to go to the back what exactly was the history was. So while the time of disintegration of USSR, Ukraine and Russia was a part of it, as we can see it here. So many of the countries like here Russia, here is Kazakhstan. So Russia was the main powering country in the terms of USSR. So here is Russia, Mongolia, China was also part of USSR. So here is Arctic Ocean, we can see. Here is Belarus, Moldova, here is Ukraine, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, that was a part of USSR. So at the time of disintegration, most of the Russians separatists, or we can say one who support the Russia, is to be established in the bordering area in the Luhansk. That matters, that's why it happened, is the bone of contention. So now in this one we will get to know what exactly the issue is. So as we can see, here is Luhansk and here is Donetsk. Earlier it was have a, like we can say, apprehension. There was a military troop is marching here and they will seize that was the capital of Kyiv and Belarus at the time. Here is military march is going on by the Russia, but it was some kind of diplomacy that is played by Russia, so that we got to know that two parts, Luhansk and Donetsk. The Luhansk and Donetsk, that was, and as we can see in 2014, Crimea was already annexed by Russia in that one part, as you can see in the map. So what exactly the issue is rising? So that here is Russia and here is the region of Luhansk and Donetsk. Basically, that people who is in the border area of Russia, they will not feel safe, or they always want that our country is Russia, not the Ukraine. Why it's so? After disintegration of USSR, that Luhansk and Donetsk people is worrying about like who will be our president or prime minister, who will our political head, and they always support the part of Russia, because the ethnic group, like for example Belagaum is a part of, we can say, Karnataka, but the people is always speak about Marathi, so they always feel like the ethnic that we are from the Maharashtra, not from the Karnataka, but technically the Belagaum is the part of Karnataka, but they always understand that Belagaum is, but the people who is speaking about Marathi, they always consider himself or herself he is from the Maharashtra. Same thing is happening here. The people of Luhansk and Donetsk is never considered the part of Ukraine. But what was the role of Ukraine in that time? Ukraine is never considered that two part is in the territorial area, because they will never support the Luhansk and Donetsk people, never support the Ukraine. And as we can see, the Sputnik vaccine has to be Sputnik vaccine has to be sent by the Luhansk and Donetsk people by the help of Russia. As we can say, these two people is already have a citizenship of Russia, and Russia declared him both the two part in Luhansk and Donetsk is a individual or independent nation. Now you have one question arise in your mind, like what exactly things? If some country it declared some other country that is a part of our country. For example, if the USA declared that Rajasthan is the independent part of our country, in that case what will happen? Try to understand in a very lucid manner. So in that case, we will collect it here, we will fight for the central government, and we can say that no, we are a part of India, not a part of USA. तो कोई भी कंट्री अगर थिंक इट अबाउट इट, इफ द अगर कोई भी कंट्री है, अगर वो किसी को इंडिपेंडेंट कर दे, उससे नुकसान क्या है? एंड हाउ दे विल इफ द हाउ दे विल take the advantage of this. So once the Vladimir Putin has announced that Luhansk and Donetsk is an independent nation, so try to understand the foreign diplomacy. If they directly encroach the two part of Luhansk and Donetsk, in that thing that in the entire world people will see that Russia is directly encroach of those two countries with the help of army. Now he started the foreign diplomacy, and what was the diplomacy is that he decided to announce that Luhansk and Donetsk is an independent nation, and he said to the UN that because they are the independent nation, they are asking help from my side. So that's why Luhansk and Donetsk now. How can we say that if a country is announced some other country's part that was a part of our nation, in that case you have to take permission of the UN. On in that case, lots of the 2 and 3 countries recognize themselves as a country. Like Luhansk people consider Donetsk is a region of. Like Luhansk people consider Donetsk is a part of country, and Donetsk people consider the Luhansk is a part of country. And now Russia is playing a very diplomatic role and starting political hegemony over there. And they said that Luhansk and Donetsk people, if you are coming towards Russia, we will tell them as a refugee of our country and we will accepting him. So now we have to understand what the issues is. Here is area-old Russian Black Horse separatists, and that separatist is all never considered the part of Ukraine. So that's why they're taking advantage. And why Russia wants not entire Ukraine and not only the two part which is the bordering area. The reason behind what is the political interest, a strategical interest. And what is the strategical interest is over there? There was a coal mines which will take advantage to the country. So now in the further discussion we will get to know. Okay, so as we got to know that Luhansk and Donetsk, that was the two reasons that became the bone of contention for the both of the nation. So now we can say, here we can see, here is a Luhansk and Donetsk, and here is Russia. So as we can see, here is a Ukraine that was a part of USSR in 1990. Before USSR disintegration, Ukraine was a part of USSR, but the strongest country in the USSR was Russia. So Luhansk and Donetsk, what exactly the importance of that two reasons that Russia has started to fight. So as we can see, the Minsk agreement which happened in 2015 itself, 2014 or 15 itself. So United States has warned Russia not to invade Ukraine and urged both countries to return to set of agreements assigned to end a separatist war by Russian speakers in eastern Ukraine. Here's a look at the agreements which have signed in Minsk 2014 to 2015. If the prelims exam is concerned, they will sometimes ask you, like for example, what is Minsk agreement between? So you have to keep in mind what exactly the Minsk agreement is. So Minsk first is Ukraine and Russia backed separatist, which means that was a part of another country, right? Here is Russia, here is Ukraine, they're part of Ukraine, but they are supporting to the Russian because people will speak that language. They always feel like kind of apnapan from that country. So Russian backed separatists agreed to 12-point ceasefire, which means to Shanti Varta, or kind of like to stop the war in the capital of Belarus in the September 2014. Its provision included prisoner exchanges, delivery of humanitarian aid, and withdrawal of heavy weapons. This is Minsk agreement, it has mentioned. 5 months into a conflict that point had killed more than 2,600 people, a toll that has risen to more than 14,000 now according to the Ukrainian government. And Minsk's second agreement is that representative of Russia, Ukraine, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, it mentioned that, and leaders of two pro-Russian separatists. Pro-Russian, which means that we can say the people is from like Luhansk and Donetsk always consider about the part of Russia. Russia consider this was a pro-Russian, with not exactly the 100% the part of Russia, or the people not consider like 100% part of Russia, but Russia itself consider that people is Donetsk and Luhansk is a part of Russia itself. So as we can see it here, we have to understand the conflict in a sequence. The threat of conflict looms in the Eastern Europe with more than Eastern Europe, which means that here in Luhansk and Donetsk, the part of Eastern Europe, and more than 1 lakh Russian troops are amassed among the border with Ukraine. Russia denies it has any plans to invade earlier. So here is March 2021. Russia troops begin amassing along the Ukraine border. What happened in December 2021? An estimated 1 lakh Russian troops are concentrated along the Ukraine border. What happened in January 2020? Russia, NATO and OSCE India hold talks. The US and Russia meet in the convention to de-escalate tensions of Ukraine. NATO put troops on standby. In February, here is Ukraine and Russia conduct military drills is there. So basically this one is a sequence through which that you've got to know what exactly happened before and what is happening, what is the result of that previous thing that was happening earlier. Now we can say here what is the geopolitical importance of the two things, geographical location of Luhansk and Donetsk. Luhansk and Donetsk, what is the importance? See, without geopolitical advantage, or we can say interest, no other country is going to be war. Similarly, as we can understand, like in the case of Iraq and the time of Saddam Hussein, as you can see, because Iraq have a petroleum resources. That's why the USA wants that petroleum resources. Similarly, things we can say in the case of Luhansk and Donetsk region, what Russia wants, as we can say, Donetsk was previously named Stalin. Donetsk was previously named Stalin. It is an industrial area. Donetsk is industrial area and is considered best for mining. As we can see, if you are good in iron ores, aluminum ores or other ores, then it means your country's economy will be boom. And there are volcanoes all around it. Heap of lava is visible here. In Ukraine, this area is called steel center. The population is about 20 lakhs. And they are separatist. So as we can see, that will help it out in the Russian economy if the Russia is captured that two part. Luhansk is named, the first was Bolshevik Guard. The population here is 15 lakh people is living here in Luhansk region. Both provinces share a border with Russia in the northern edge of Black Sea. So try to find it out in the atlas. Is the Luhansk and Donetsk, and where is the Black Sea? So make sure that is the northern edge of the Black Sea. There is huge deposit of coal here. So as we can see, both the region of Donetsk and Luhansk have, we can say, the mineral resources. As the mineral resources. So that's why these things that's why Russia wants that two reason for the political, for the benefit of, and for this will boost of his economy. So as we can see, Donetsk is a steel center, and this one is a coal center. So this will help you out, because if the lots of mineral resources in a country, so country will start exporting these and will gain benefits, and through this activity the country will get benefited. So now, what is the background of the crisis? So we have now got to know Ukraine and Russia share hundreds of years of cultural, linguistic and familial links. For many in Russia and the ethnically Russian parts of Ukraine, the shared heritage of the countries is an emotional issue that has been exploited for electoral and military purpose. As part of Soviet Union, which is known to be a USSR, Ukraine was second most powerful Soviet republic after Russia. So this country was the second most powerful after Russia and was crucial insurgency economically and culturally. As we can say, this one is Georgia. This one part. Here it is a part of, here is Georgia. Why? What is the political importance of the Georgia? So this is a okay. So a strategic calculation of Russia is that Russia, the world's largest country by land mass, lacked natural borders except the Arctic Ocean in the north and Pacific in the east. The country's heartland that runs from St. Petersburg through Moscow of Volga region lies on the plains and is vulnerable to attacks. There are practically no natural barriers that stop an invading army from its western border, that is Europe, reaching the Russia heartland. The last 2 centuries, Russia saw two devastating invasions from the west in 1812, attacked by Napoleonic France, and the 1941 attack by Nazi, which is Germany. Russia defeated them both, but after suffering huge material and human losses. So in a war, as we can say, we have great losses in the both of the nation. And what is the diplomacy of India in this crisis? India is a, as we can say, is a silent diplomacy. It means that the time of 2014, India says the same thing, and now this is the same point. Thus, after Second World War, Russia re-established its control over the rim land in Eastern Europe and Central Asia, which it hoped would protect its heartland. Both the disintegration of the Soviet Union in 1990 threw its security calculation into disarray, developing its historical insecurity. So, what is the NATO response to NATO expansion? The West had promised that NATO would not expand in the East, but despite the promises, the expansion had continued. 1999, the Czech Republic, Hungary, and Poland all were members of Soviet-led Warsaw Pact. Warsaw Pact, as we got to know, the Warsaw Pact is established. Warsaw Pact has been established after the Second World War to make the peaceful nation in the world. So 5 years later, 7 more countries, including the 3 Baltic countries of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, all of which share border with Russia. Russia does not want Ukraine to fall into the hands of NATO, which would threaten its heartland. Because if it becomes a part of NATO, so what exactly what is the work of NATO in case of security? So if you talk about, so NATO is basically North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It is a military alliance established by the North Atlantic Treaty, also called the Washington Treaty of April 1949 by the United States, Canada, and several Western Europe nations to provide collective security against the Soviet Union. As a key provision of the treaty, the so-called article is mentioned that if one member of the alliance is attacked in Europe or North America, it is to be considered an attack on all members. That effectively put Western Europe under the nuclear umbrella of the US. So there are 29 members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So somehow you got to know the brief about the NATO. So if it is considered that अगर एक country पे attacks होता है, they are considering attack on the USA, which would threaten its heartland. So further out, the countries that surround Black Sea, Turkey, Bulgaria, and Romania are NATO members. If Ukraine and Georgia join NATO, Russia's gateway to Mediterranean Sea would be narrowed. So you have to understand the diplomacy of the Russia now to understanding this. So Russia annexed Crimea Peninsula and secured its access to the Black Sea, and thus Crimea access in 2014. It has to be annexed by Crimea. So that has started the political hegemony of Russia. Now, if we talk about, so in this regard, now we have to understand. So Russia focused on rimland countries. South Ossetia and Abkhazia, the self-proclaimed republic that broke away from Georgia, are controlled by Russia black forces. So Belarus, with Russian support, had manufactured a migrant crisis on the Polish border of the European Union. The recent protests in Kazakhstan, Russia dispatched troops under the banner of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, which is CSTO. CSTO, which means Collective Security Treaty Organization, to swell the protesters. So Minsk process, as we got to know already, the Minsk is one and all accord reached in 2014 and 15, which we have already discussed, had brought us ceasefire, which means we can say stop the war. In a general language, we can say ceasefire, but do not write in the mains answer writing is the stop the war. You have to write the term is ceasefire, is a keyword, right? I just make you understand that ceasefire is the basically feel like we can say like we don't need war at all. So ceasefire between the Russia-backed rebels in Ukraine Donbass region. So that too region is known to be a Donbass region. We already discussed and put forward a formula for resolving the conflict. However, the terms of these process were never implemented on the ground. This process ended because of the Russia's recognition. So what is India's stand on Russia recognition? So basically we can say the escalation of tensions along the border between Ukraine and Russian Federation was a matter of deep concern, and that these developments have the potential to undermine peace and security in the region. India has not condemned Russia's statement of recognition. India has been insisting upon diplomatic resolutions of the crisis, which has been done in the earlier 2014 as well, when was the Minsk agreement was between Russia and Ukraine. So the Indian statement did not use the words territorial integrity and sovereignty, which it always refers to context of China aggressive behavior. So India was basically, we can say, a quiet diplomacy sometimes in the case of Russia and Ukraine crisis. Okay. So what is the impact on India? So impact on India is India has traditionally had close with Russia, while USSR. However, it has been tilting towards a later Quad region, Quad and the Indo-Pacific to deter China. Russia is a major supplier of defense equipment to India, as we know that Rafale is also we are importing from from Russia. The Russian posture on Ukraine and the reaction to its strengthen the Sino-Russian partnership. Sino-Russian axis might curtail the Russian ability to support India in the case of conflict between India and China. As 1400 deal and the Karsa sanction could be the imposed in the backdrop of Ukrainian crisis. So basically, the curtailed defense supplies will impact India's ability to respond to China, divert the attention, or the oil crisis can be escalated. How the oil crisis can be escalated in India or in the European country? Because if you go back to the history, we got to know that here is if you go back to the history, we got to know that Nord Stream pipeline. A Nord Stream pipeline is if the is from the Germany. Germany has stopped this pipeline, so that impacted the European country as well as India. So that oil prices can escalate. Now, if you talk about prelims specific section, which is somehow very important in the terms of prelims exam. So here is we have to understand is a specific location. So like because in a map part you just need to spend 10 to 15 minutes to solving the map questions. Here is Georgia. We have to understand what? We have to understand here is the Black Sea. and that Black Sea here is Bulgaria, here is Romania. Understand which sea, which country is passing through it, and try to make it some mnemonics so that you can learn it out. Or like Crimea is here, which is the eastern part. So here is Russia is located, and here is the Black Sea, and Georgia is in which part? So got to know that here is the Turkey is here. So mapping part is very important, but do not try to do mapping in a week. Do it for a daily exercise so that it will help you out, and it will help you out where is the country exactly is located. Without knowing the country, it is unable to solve the question that is based on mapping.